It's the same tone. It's just under a different pressure condition. So you can manipulate the entire universe by changing the motion and pressure conditions because it's all waves. It's not a physical thing. So as far as our bodies are concerned, if you wrapped an entire ship in molecular excitation and change to where they are no longer part of the system, now you can be out there. But using our traditional methods, you cannot do that. You have to wrap it in frequency.
How much have you followed what he says on how he's planning on doing that?
He's just trying to get the people out there. And I think what they want to do is mine that asteroid belt. That's what they really want to do, and that's what we're
mentioning. The purpose is mining.
Is mining the asteroid belt. There's one asteroid out there called Psyche that's worth $10 quadrillion worth of tungsten and tantalum and rare earth metals inside of there. That's just in one. So their ability to
said this one?
Psyche, yep. So the ability to mine these asteroid belts, gets rid of all the mining on the planet. They want to get to Mars so that they can do some mining, but they don't realize that we don't need any of that stuff anymore.
Why not?
Because what the linchpin brings by the resonant quality of the linchpin, the Howard comma, what that allows you to do is now have the universal template to put into any situation and open up. That's why it's used for faster than light communication, subspace communication, all the things that we've now put in the paper that I couldn't do before. When I first went to Eric and everyone, I was like, well, I'm shy in the mathematics, but I have the geometry, I have the patterns and all this. So what Eric Weinstein gave me was a book on differential equations and gauge theory. Well, what I was able to do with that, now I understand the math enough, and using AI as a guide, you can plug into it and give it the information necessary, because I'm sure the very first time that they started the quantum computer or the supercomputer, the very first thing they tried to do was solve the three-body problem, but it couldn't solve it. And they tried to solve the 7 millennial problems, but they couldn't solve it with those computers. But we've been able to solve it by changing the paradigm, by changing to curve multiplication, by using a finite space, by redistributing the prime numbers, and by utilizing the actual curvature of the universe. We've been able to fix all of those problems.
Okay, so let's stay on that, because just yesterday we're having a very innocent conversation. Here's what the conversation was. Conversation is, one of our guys says, oh my God, this is crazy. I mean, I don't know if Terrence knows what he's talking about and all this other stuff. I won't give his name because, he's out there. And so another guy says, I don't know, man. I think some of the stuff he says, so how do you think the pyramid was built?
What Terrence Howard said might sound wild at first. Words like molecular excitation and frequency wrapping aren't exactly part of everyday conversation, I'll be honest. I had to look up almost every single concept he mentioned one by one. The only part I didn't need to dig into was asteroid mining, because I've been saying for years that once Elon Musk created the reusable rocket, that was always going to be the real end game. But what Howard laid out isn't random. It's a deeply interconnected worldview. Every term he used actually points to something specific, even if it isn't part of conventional science. What follows is a clear breakdown of what Terrence Howard was trying to say, translated into normal language. This isn't a critique, it's a bridge. Because once you decode the terms, it becomes clear that he's not confused. He's building a map that just happens to use a different compass. Howard starts with the idea that reality isn't made of things. It's made of waves. Everything we think of as solid, from rocks to people to planets, is actually just energy vibrating at a certain frequency. Sound, light, and even physical matter are part of the same system, just tuned to different levels. When he says sound is light slowed down, he's describing his belief that all energy is one continuum. Slow vibrations give us sound. Faster ones give us light. Even matter itself, he believes, is just a frozen pattern of these waves. That's not gibberish. It's his attempt to reframe the entire universe as motion, not material. Next, he takes that wave-based view and applies it to physical transformation. His claim that we can manipulate the universe through motion and pressure sounds dramatic. But here's what he means. If everything is made of the same basic stuff, just moving differently, then changing how something moves should change what it is. Think of how water becomes ice or steam depending on pressure and temperature. Howard believes you could apply this logic to everything in the universe. Change the pressure and frequency of something, and it becomes something else. Not symbolically, literally. To him, iron and helium aren't different materials. They're the same material in different energetic states, like how music can shift genres without changing the instrument. That leads to his more advanced idea, molecular excitation. I had to look this up. In real science, this means giving molecules extra energy so they move or vibrate more, like heating something up until it glows. But Howard takes this further. He says that if you get an entire object, like a ship, to vibrate just right at the molecular level, it can disconnect from the physical environment. Gravity, inertia, friction, he says those forces are tied to your vibrational state. Change that state, and you exit the system. In his view, we're bound by the rules of the physical world because we're vibrating in sync with it. If we change our frequency, we could theoretically slip out of phase, like changing the channel on a TV. That's what he means when he talks about using vibration to remove a craft from traditional physics. He's not talking metaphorically. He thinks it's physically possible, and that's where the phrase frequency wrapping comes in. Imagine wrapping an object in a protective energy field that vibrates at a specific frequency. According to Howard, that wrapper would isolate it from the normal forces acting on it. Kind of like a force field that blocks gravity. It's not shielding in the Star Trek sense, it's vibrational decoupling. If you hit the right resonance, the object could float, vanish, or move in ways that seem impossible. This isn't something I've seen backed by mainstream science, but it's clear what he's saying. It's about using tuned frequencies to make objects behave as if they've left the rules of normal space behind. This ties into his bigger idea of resonance, that everything has a natural vibration, and if you match it, you unlock control. That's where the linchpin comes in. Howard talks about geometry a lot. He believes the universe has a master shape, a kind of repeating design that governs how everything is structured. He refers to the flower of life, which is an ancient geometric pattern made from overlapping circles. But unlike those who treat it as symbolic, Howard says he's mathematically extended it into 3 dimensions and discovered a core structure he calls the linchpin. It's based on the square root of 2, and in his view, it explains how energy flows, how forces connect, and how the physical world is organized. He said it's the key to understanding everything from sound to gravity. In short, resonance is the key, and the linchpin is the lock it opens. Now here's where it gets real. Out of everything he said, the one part that I've been tracking for years is the asteroid mining claim. And unlike some of the more theoretical stuff, this one doesn't require belief. It just requires paying attention. Terrence Howard says the true purpose of space exploration is to mine the asteroid belt. He points to the Psyche mission, NASA's probe to a metal-rich asteroid said to be worth more than the global economy. Mainstream media frames it as a science mission, but Howard argues that the deeper motivation is profit. And he's right to raise that point, because if we can mine asteroids, we don't need to dig up Earth. We could shift all resource extraction to space. Psyche is thought to be the exposed metal core of a planet that never finished forming, meaning it's packed with iron, nickel, and possibly platinum group metals. Estimates have called it a $10 quadrillion rock. If even a fraction of that becomes accessible, it would rewrite economics. And here's what matters most. Elon Musk is absolutely laying the groundwork for exactly this. He created the first fully reusable rocket system with Starship. That didn't just make Mars reachable, it made heavy industrial operations in space cost-effective. In 2024, SpaceX launched AstroForge's first asteroid mining test mission. Musk himself called it a fun one. Tesla's Optimus robot is already being considered for Mars labor. And Gwynne Shotwell has said, the Boring Company's tunnel tech could be used to build Martian bases, which would obviously require mining. On top of that, Congress is actively debating legal frameworks for space mining, The pieces are all being quietly moved into place. So when Terrence Howard says asteroid mining is the real motive behind all this, I'm not rolling my eyes. I'm nodding. Maybe the rest of what he's saying is decades ahead of where we are now. Maybe we don't have the tools to wrap a ship in frequency and float it off into some alternate dimension. But he's not throwing darts. He's laying out a framework, one that views the universe not as static matter, but as a sea of vibration, motion, and geometry. And if you master those vibrations, you don't just explain the world, you remake it. So laugh if you want. I did the research. I looked up every one of these ideas. And while I'm not here to prove anything, I know this much. None of it has been debunked. The official narrative hasn't stopped building the infrastructure for it. And Elon Musk, he's already mining the stars. Leave a comment if you're finally starting to wonder whether Terrence is crazy or just early.